If somebody would have told me that I would spend five figures to get a piece of paper, I'd have told them to go to hell.
Let's talk about it.
Let's talk about it.
Let's talk about it.
Let's talk about it.
I think that was by far the most profound thing I feel like I've ever heard, and you just started the episode. So, welcome back to another episode of the So Let's Talk About It pod. You right though. If somebody would have told me that I was about to spend all this money simply to get a piece of paper
Yeah.
and shake some hands,
Yeah.
because the truth of the matter is, I think growing up in our era, right, millennials, I feel like our parents were the first generation that really was like taking the whole college thing serious. And when it came to us, right, there was a generation before us, but when it came to us directly, I feel like we were like, it was kind of like a expected thing. Like it wasn't a, you don't go to high school. It's like you go on to family dinners for Thanksgiving, and the first thing they know you a senior, oh, where are you going? Or what school you getting, what are you going to study? And it was kind of like a given. Like I feel like my brother and sister's generation, like Gen Z, is that who they are?
Yeah, that's Gen Z.
I feel like Gen Z, they are not, they're having the conversation or they're not. Like my brother, my parents were like, yo, you don't really even like school. Like, do you want to go? You can go if you want to go. But
Let me ask you this.
you're just going to cut me off like that?
Yeah.
Got
Do you
it.
feel like you had a choice?
I 100% feel like I did not have a choice. But I feel like because I didn't have a choice, my brother, by the time that he graduated from high school, got a choice.
Hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I feel like those of us that are millennials, like I said, anywhere up to 30, 35, 36. Like, I don't feel like we had a choice to go to college. It was graduate from high school. What college are you going to? What colleges have you applied for? And I don't really feel like it was a choice. Do you think it was a choice?
I think when it came to education, I didn't have a lot of choices. So no, I didn't think it was a choice. But I also, I just looking back at my family history, I felt like to better my life, I did need to go to college.
Okay.
Um, so just to unpack some things, I'm I'm not the first to go to college and graduate, but of my siblings, we're the first
Mm-hmm.
in our family to go to college and graduate,
And your cousins.
and my cousins. So, my mom and my dad went to the Air Force at 18.
Mm-hmm.
He went to the Air Force. It's crazy because he told me he was going to be an accountant, and then he just said, "Man, I'm gonna go to the Air Force at 18," and he kind of left that behind. My mom, she didn't start getting her associate's degree till maybe 40.
Mm.
So, but she was in education. She was working in education her entire life. So, education was very, very big. Doing your work, getting your work done, all that stuff was big in my household.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't feel like I didn't feel like I didn't have a choice. I just knew I definitely have to get here. I definitely have to get to college, just because I saw the lifestyle, and we can get into that,
Yeah.
because I saw the lifestyle of not just uh, you know people that didn't go to college.
Mm-hmm.
I seen the lifestyle of people that did go to college,
Mm-hmm.
and I started doing some thinking.
So even with that, the reason why I feel like I didn't have a choice is very simple. My parents were first gen.
Okay.
So you and your siblings, y'all were first gen. Your cousin, you and your first cousins, like all of y'all were first gen. My parents were the first gen. Okay, so my mom and her sisters, they went to college. Actually, all of my mother and her siblings went to college. My uncle as well. And but my mom was like the poverty kid that got into the best school, right? The kid that wasn't supposed to be it at this school at all because it was a predominantly white school.
Hmm.
She went to Vanderbilt University, and she also got her master's. My dad, he was the only one of his siblings that graduated from college. So he went to Johnson C. Smith University in North Carolina, and
Nice.
So like I said, both my parents are like super first gen. My dad is extra first gen. My mom got a master's. And so when it came to graduating from high school, I didn't feel like college was an option because I had big shoes to fill. So like, if you remember, we talked about in the childhood trauma episode, we were talking about like the expectations that you have, and I understand they're based off of the upbringing that my parents had. Like my grandma worked at Domino's and the government. She worked at HUD, but
Hmm.
she worked at Domino's or Pizza Hut, one of those. She worked at a pizza joint at night to put my father through college. And so when you know those stories and what your ancestors have done in order for other people to, to be like, our ancestors fought for us to be able to do these things, that's where I feel like I didn't get a choice. I'm like, and not that I would have regretted it either. You know what I mean? One of the greatest things that happened to me in college, Mr. Malcolm Garrison. Like, I don't regret college because obviously this was where we needed to meet anyway. But I don't feel like I had a choice of if I want to go or not. Like, that was not a thing in my household. It wasn't a you not going to college type thing.
I feel like there wasn't education on going to college. What I mean by that is there wasn't um, a real conversation around or strategy
Hmm.
on how to go to college and not acquire so much debt and things like that. Like I feel like, and I think it's for most people, most millennials at least, because I believe we're the most educated generation. Is that so many of our parents didn't? So it was that underlining pressure of you better go. You ain't
Right.
staying
You
here.
ain't about to stay here.
You ain't about to stay in my house. You ain't about to do. If you ain't about to work, you definitely going to school. And it was
For
that.
sure.
So at 18, when you're the most vulnerable that you're ever going to be, you got to make a big person decision. You got to make an adult decision at a very very early age.
Hmm.
And I think that's where a lot of us have fell victim to. People continue to fall victim to because think about it. This this uh, this country has been built upon ignorance.
100%.
Capitalism has been built upon ignorance, meaning people will capitalize on what you do not know.
Hmm.
And that is how businesses are created. What
Hmm.
you can't do, I can, so I charge you a fee. And
Hmm.
you pay me that fee because of my knowledge and expertise. Well, when you're 18 and you're just out of high school, you have no idea the concept of debt. You have no idea what you're going to do, in the world and being a functional adult in the society. But somebody tells you, hey, you have to go to this institution, you have to go to this place, and you have to pay this amount of money in order to give yourself a fighting chance.
Hmm.
And when you're telling somebody that at 18 years old, that's very, very impressionable, what do you think they're going to do?
But although it comes from what did you say?
Institutions?
Yeah, although that information comes from the institutions, it also is based off of what the generation before you, your parents, whoever those people are, it's based off of the information that they have because there are other
Correct.
cultures, that aren't the black community where you got people that have it that will take that are building their asset bank of like, their real estate or their home ownership and stuff like that. And the reason why they're buying houses, which we found out recently, we just heard about this, which is definitely something that we're probably going to make sure that is happening. Well, for our child, but just to have this thought process of knowledge of there are individuals that will purchase houses when their children are young so that they can take out the equity to pay for colleges.
Yeah.
And I remember when we heard that
Strategy
was
around
in an
that.
Uber. We were in
Crazy.
an Uber on our way to the airport, and we were talking to the Uber driver. This gentleman, he was a white gentleman and really really dope guy. He was super cool. But he was talking about how him and his son were invested in the crypto. He was talking about some of the people that he'd been driving and the people that he used to work with, how they were, buying into these stocks early and being able to pay for all their children to become doctors. He was saying that one of his business partners, one of his former coworkers, literally him and his wife paid for all of his children not only to just go to undergrad, not only just to go to grad school, but to pay through med school for the ones of them that became clinical doctors, and then the other ones that were, PhD doctors. So you're now talking about, I think they had 4 kids, but they paid for all of it through the equity that was built through their home
Yeah.
and the different assets that they had now purchased.
Strategy.
And I was like, wow. I would have never even considered that, because I feel like what I know about home ownership and what we're learning in the process of us starting to look, to purchase our first home as well, is I never thought most people are thinking about. I think in our community, based off of like a knowledge, like you said, when you think about the equity within your home, you're thinking about either buying another home or just cashing out and having money. But I had
Correct.
never considered it as a way to put my child through school if that's what they wanted to do.
Yeah.
And so,
I never thought that either.
but my point being is like we can only go as far as the information that our parents had. So if their focus is simply you need to go to school where they're not thinking about how to pay for it, they weren't considering it's just like it's a given that my kids are going to college. However, I haven't actually started to create a nest egg or a fund that's going to position them to be able to do it without having to pay for it.
Yeah, and I think that's why the discussion of is college really necessary, so big. And then, like you just said, they had strategy around paying this stuff back
Hmm.
because that is the reality is that you're going to be in four or five, even some people six
Six
figures or
figures
multiple six figures worth of debt
to learn.
to learn something, to get a piece of paper, or to be a specialist in something, which I believe that is necessary. If you're going to school to be a specialist, I believe college is very, very necessary.
I feel like college is necessary to an extent. Like I believe that college is necessary. I think it is a very, very dope thing to do. I think it develops you in a lot of different ways. But one of the things that I don't think people think about is that the majority of the time you're spending in general classes. So you're trying to develop the type of person you want to be. And I don't think there's enough education or information or courses or even the guidance counselors and the advisors, they don't really give you like what is the whole process of developing the person that you want to become or picking the courses that you want to choose, you know what I mean, or
Yeah.
the major that you want to choose. It's like you're kind of thrown into something based off of something you think you might want to do, but there's not really any education around how to pick it, or is there where's the questionnaire at that's like where you should probably spend your time. And I say that from experience, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Because I went to school for music. The reason why I went to school for music was because music is what had already come naturally to me. It's something that I've already
right.
already had interest in. It's something that I already had been doing. So in my mind I thought that would be an easy thing to take on.
Well, can you define something for me?
Okay.
What do you think? What do working in the field of choice that you went to school in? What does that look like for you?
For me, this is why it doesn't make sense. 100%. This is why my degree makes no sense. Is
Okay.
because for somebody who got a vocal performance degree, I'm not vocally performing unless you're talking about me talking. Or, yeah, I do praise and worship or something like that at a church, but I'm not out here like, I got friends that we have the same degree, which it makes sense for what they're doing long term. And this is why I say, like, I didn't have the proper guidance from advisory to say, well, yeah, Brittany, but is that really what you want to do? Because the truth is, remember when I took that business class with you? My
Yeah,
last
I remember
semester,
that. Yeah.
I take this business class and I'm like, yo, this is incredible. Why haven't I been
Yeah.
doing this the whole time?
You were so hyped.
Or my junior year, was it my junior? Yeah, my junior year, I had taken another class. It was called I don't remember what the class was called, but it was a class where basically we would listen to music and you would start to paint the pictures of what does this music go. It was like music scoring or something like that. What does this music go to? Music composition. There it goes. So it was a music composition class where we would listen to music and it was like you could picture, well, what would this be composed for? Is it a movie or what's happening in this movie? What's happening in this scene? And I was so detailed with it. I was really good. And my professor came to me and was like, "Why aren't you a compensation? I want some money.
A composer.
Why aren't you a comp major, right? Why
Gotcha.
aren't
Okay.
you in the composition course? You're in the vocal performance course." And so the whole thing, I'm
That's
like,
important.
nobody told me, nobody said, like, I thought that's what I had to do because this is what was available to me. I didn't know that I had an option to pick composition or even think about business. You know what I'm saying? And so that's where my question lies of like, where is the information that educates the person who's 18, who's impressionable, who's being forced to hurry up and pick a major because that's all you're hearing is, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? What are you going to do? So now I'm rushing into something that I'm not necessarily sure is what I actually want to do based off of what people are importing and putting into me.
Yeah, I think there's not enough people that are willing to look and kind of get to know. a student
Mm-hmm.
to figure out what do they like to do. And I think there needs to be like a gap year.
Oh, for sure.
From high school to college, I feel like there needs to be a gap year where you kind of try to figure this thing out. Like, okay, what are you good at, or what do you like to do? Because I remember my freshman year in college, I'm taking an aerobics course. What am I paying $40,000 a year, 20,000 a semester to take an aerobics course? Think about it. I'm
No,
like,
that's real.
so the first 2 years
It's BS.
is complete BS. The first 2 years of you going to college is a waste of money. I would say that is not necessary. So if I had to, go back in time, I probably would have done classes in maybe a community college or something like that, and took all my electives in a major that I probably wanted to go into, and to make sure that those electives was transferable anywhere in the country, because it's cheaper to do so. And these are when we talk about strategies. These are strategies that we're not taught. We're not given a conversation about. And I think it's only because what our parents might didn't know. They didn't know. I mean, ignorance is passed down too.
It is, but I think the other aspect to it is really understanding that the societal conversation is that if you don't have a degree, you're working at McDonald's. That's
That
what we
is
heard our whole lives. Is like you can only work at McDonald's if you didn't have a degree.
that
And
is
when I talk about
100% true.
me not coming back to school after I took that semester off was because I'm like, yo, I'm working for the government. I have a top secret clearance. I have all the things that I need to really make a lot of money in this space. Like when I look back, I'm 29 now. If I was still working in that career field, I would have now been at the government for 12 years.
Yeah.
That's a long time. So you telling me I wouldn't at least have a six-figure salary, blah, blah, blah. But my point to that is now saying like, I only made the decision to go back to schools because that's what I knew to do. But at that point, is everything I could have really said everything that I've ever known is a lie. Because y'all said if I didn't have a degree, I'd be at McDonald's. But here I am, my freshman year of college, my junior year of college, and taking this year off when I'm 20, 19 to 20, and I'm making $35,000 a year, which of course, with no bills, because I feel like sometimes people hear 35,000 like I couldn't live off of that. But okay, I live with my parents. I don't have any real expenses. I won't even pay my phone bill. You know what I'm saying? I have no expenses,
Just
and I'm
living
making
for free.
$35,000.
It's crazy.
And so, even when I would only go back for the summer, I would be working for those 12 weeks or however long it was, or what even 12 weeks, I don't know, however long the summer period was. I would come back to school with $10,000 to $15,000 because my parents told me to save money.
You bring up an interesting point. Is that I feel like society puts a pressure on people that, especially millennials, that you have to go to college.
Yes.
You have to, because of what you just said.
Mm-hmm.
What kind of job you gonna get?
Exactly.
And it couldn't be the furthest thing from the truth. What I think is, if you become a specialist, or if you take a certain type of trade, that makes you just more as just as valuable as anybody else in the workforce.
For sure.
But and I think they're starting to change it now, that you don't have to have all these requirements.
Google right
You
now
know?
literally has courses that you can take for free
Yeah, because
to be
certifications are out there.
certified to do this stuff.
There's so many certifications out there now that I feel like people can go a different route, and you don't have to necessarily go that traditional route that has been taught for so many years, because it is a revolving door. Just like we saw our parents, okay, y'all didn't go to school, y'all wasn't the most educated generation. Well, we know we got to get ourselves some education. Well, we got that, but we also knew we also found out that light, there's not much light at the end of the tunnel of that too. So what's the next step? Oh, there's certifications out there where I don't have to put myself in this much debt before I even get out there in the real world and start really, really making some money that really isn't mine because I owe somebody else 6 figures. You see what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah, no, I feel that. But I also feel like there are other programs like the school where I got my master's.
okay,
How long is a traditional master's program?
it's like 2 years.
Exactly. But the school that I got my master's from, shout out to Full Sail University, they made their program so compact, right? And had I gone there for undergrad and my master's, I would have been done with all of it in 3 years. So they take a bachelor's program and they put it into 2 years because they eliminate the majority of the BS that you're taking at the beginning. And what's also really incredible about their program is that they put you in real world situations based off of your major. So if you were I went there for entertainment business, but if you were, let's say, somebody who wanted to be in film, you wanted to be a screenwriter, literally the majority of your coursework, even if every single class was a different genre of writing, so maybe playwrights, maybe sitcoms, maybe movies, every single course was something different, but the whole concept was building your portfolio so that when you would leave, you were able to now shop that around.
So
Right?
you were taking course for a purpose.
You were taking courses for a purpose. If you were in the music production course, right? Most people, when you're in the industry and you're an engineer or audio engineer or you're a music producer, you're not at the studio at noon. You're not at the studio at 7 a.m., 9 a.m. You at the studio, somebody's calling you at midnight, 11 o'clock, 3 a.m., right? That's the time that most people are coming in to do their work. And so that course, your classes were at that same time because it was preparing you for what the actual industry was like. The whole school, the entire campus was a film set. So you would be able to now film on campus and do all this stuff. They also provided you within your tuition all the equipment that you would need based off of your major. So if you
Okay.
were a film major, you were getting the cameras, you were getting the software. And so it's like programs like that make me want to go to school because I understand that what I'm actually going to get from being at this in this program is actually going to set me up for the profession I'm trying to be in, and you're working with actual professionals. I think that's the other, trash aspect of college is that your business professor is a professor. They're professing to you what should happen in this arena, but they don't actually own a business. So they can't really educate you on what's happening in this space. And so I love schools like Full Sail because they were actually putting you in position to learn from people that were currently operating in those professions and could give you like the advice based off of what would happen here. I went to school for business and I had my last class was business plan development. You couldn't graduate unless there was there was a string of investors that were
Yep, I
also
remember that.
professors, and you couldn't graduate. You couldn't get cleared to graduate unless there was an investor that wanted to invest into your project.
But how long did that take you to kind of figure out like this is what I want to do, or this is something that you're interested in? Because usually my business classes,
That was my last semester
the
though.
happiest I've ever seen anybody in a business class. I'm like, business is boring, right? Like this is not
Business is 100% boring, and I know
like
that.
this
I
is
know
not
that because
fun
my,
stuff.
my being in business, it has been boring because it's monotonous. It's boring because it's monotonous. But yes, that was the greatest thing that ever happened to me because it opened up another world. Because remember, based off of society, based off of what was easy, I went for music because that's what I was used to doing. And so I felt like it was a place where I could thrive and I wouldn't have to be the person starting. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
But I ended up actually being the person starting because the people that I was in class with, they've been in school for music their whole lives. They've been doing this stuff since they were 3.
So it took you close to 4 years to kind of figure out
Oh, for sure.
what you actually was intrigued about, and I think that's where the dilemma lies, is that there could be a gap, too long of a gap, for somebody to kind of figure out what they need to do.
And then you figure it out in your last semester,
Yeah,
but you don't have 4 more years to go back to school.
society don't give you 4 years.
Oh no.
Society does not give you 4 years, and if you're a black man, they give you less than one. You know, you got to figure this thing out very, very early. And then if you're an athlete, and I shared this with you, like being an athlete in college, you don't have any time to get any real work experience.
Right.
So when it is time to actually, get out there and get into the real world, because you're not going pro, well, you haven't acquired any skills outside of what you've been have been doing all 4 years.
Do you feel like that's a fault within the collegiate athletic system that you D3, you D2, your chances and likelihood of going to the league. Maybe you can go overseas, but do you feel
Yeah.
like they don't prepare you because they actually still make you put all your time into the sport that you don't actually get prepared for the real world?
I think there's not enough conversations on, if somebody would ask you, what else are you interested in? Questions like that, like what else do you like to do outside of shooting? Like What else do you like to do outside of this sanctuary or this court that you call it? You know, what else is it? And those conversations sparks a certain mindset or it sparks something, a thought that you now get to think past just shooting the ball into a net. Like, okay, what am I good at? What do I want to get into?
Mm-hmm.
And it's not enough of that happening for athletes where they come out of school after 4 years and they're in limbo for years trying to figure it out because you got to understand you hadn't just been playing for 4 years. You've been playing for probably 20, 23, 22, 23 years.
Mm-hmm.
So that's been your entire life, and it's gone in an instant.
Mm-hmm.
So now it's then what? And when you hit that then what? And then you got, you got this piece of paper. Yes, you finished something, and I think that's what makes college kind of important is that it shows people that you finished something, but still I feel like there's a broken system, and we have to figure out a way to kind of shift that narrative or shift the focus because it's not working.
I think one of the other issues with it is that, I think for millennials for sure, it was treated as if you were like the plague if you were an entrepreneur or if you didn't go to college. Like, you didn't go to school, you don't go to school, you don't go to college. And it's like,
Yeah, you were unemployed.
yeah, you were unemployed, but it was like, why did we put so much emphasis on it to the point where people felt like failures if they don't finish because they found another route, like, or you found your passion because you were building a business on the side or because you were doing hair while you were in college and realized, like, I can actually just become a licensed cosmetologist. I can become an esthetician and I can do the things that I want to do. Like, one of my homegirls, she literally got a degree in childhood special education. She had a degree in special education. You talk about 5 years of college, and wanted to be an esthetician the entire time. But because of
Yeah,
what my
wow.
parents would think, or because my parents are paying for my education, they're saying you have to do this major. I'm not paying for no makeup stuff. I'm not paying for no esthetician school, even though esthetician school was only $10,000. So I spent 5 years in school for $30,000 a year. You know what I'm saying? Only to not even ever be in this profession. I think it provides entrepreneurs, if you do have a degree, I think it does provide you with a great backup plan if you ever need to do something because you do have that. But I know people that never finish school that are making six figures, you know what I'm saying, on a job doing something that is completely unrelated to what they were even going to study. So is it true that you don't have a degree, you can't make no money? That's a thing of the past. I think that
No,
was our parents' generation, and it probably was true for
it
that.
was true for that
But it's not
generation.
true now
It's not.
because
Yeah, you're
now
right.
Gen Z, they're not even worried about college. They're not even thinking about that, Joe, and they are out here doing
Yeah,
phenomenal.
yeah. Gen Z, it's like they're they're like a cross between us and probably themselves because because a lot of them they're challenging the status quo. They're challenging what's been normal. They're challenging all these things that seem to be the order of things. They're saying, "Well, no, I don't want to do that." They're unapologetic,
With no problem, and they're not
completely
even being
unapologetic.
challenged by their parents to just be like, okay. And like I said, do you feel like millennials were the buffer generation, like where we experience two aspects of things, right? We experience cassette tapes, we experience streaming. You know what I'm saying? We
Right? You feel
experience
old or you
you
feel new?
you feel both. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying? But I feel like we bridged the gap to where when we were graduating high school, it wasn't a question about going to college. If you didn't go to college, it was like you were sinning. You know what I'm saying? But now I feel like because we started we started the challenge. We started to say, well, I don't necessarily want to go to school for communications because I can actually get on Instagram and start making, or get on YouTube and start making videos, and YouTube will pay me. I can become a six-figure, seven-figure earner just by making videos on my cell phone or on my camera. And it was like, what? You can do what? Like, I went into music, right? And I got a degree in it, but it opened up because I was able to do stuff on the side or like be in the studio, get gigs, and make money from the industry. When my brother said I wanted to be a full time musician, I felt like my parents was like, I know you can make money doing that because I already saw it. But when I was talking about it, it was like, what are you about to do? Why are you about to do that? How does that make sense? How are you going to get money? How are you? You know what I'm saying? It was all, we were the how are you generation that pretty much I feel like paved way for, you know,
like the tester
a hundred
generation.
percent the tester
Let's
generation.
see if this works.
Let's see if they could do this. If they can do this, then I believe if somebody tells me that that's what they want to do, it could work.
I mean, but do you think what are some of the good things that college brought you, or what do you think the
A
skills
husband,
that you learned?
a baby
You
daddy.
know, outside of that, definitely got you know, a wife
Oh yeah, watch
going
your
to.
mouth
Yeah, man, we're gonna keep it G rated.
for today. Um, College is the greatest social experience you will
Yeah,
ever have.
you're right.
Um, one of the reasons why I actually went to this, I wanted to go to the school that we went to was because I went to a very, very, very black high school, very black.
Okay.
And I love being black. I love being black, blackety black. But I understood, what I understood is that when I get into the workforce, this is programming 100%. I understood getting into the workforce meant that I would have to deal with other races, and I wasn't good at doing that.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? I knew that, and in hindsight, I really do wish I went to a HBCU. I know I would have had a significantly different
Man.
experience. I feel like I missed out on so much college because I went to a PWI, but I understood as well that based off of what I expected to be doing,
Yeah. Yeah.
which was getting a good old corporate job, I knew that there were people that I had no experience dealing with on a day to day level or understanding the hierarchy and even understanding racism for real. When you go to your neighborhood school, you know there's things like racism that occur, but it sounds crazy to say I put myself in that situation because sometimes we're taught how to deal with it, but you have to deal with it in real life to understand how you would really respond to these things. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think that's the only thing that makes me well, one of the things that makes me proud and happy that I went to private school and high school, because I did get to see a lot of that. I did get to learn how to talk to other people outside of my race and how to interact with people outside of my race, and also middle school, because like I told them in the first episode, I got bused to middle school an hour away from home. So it did teach me a lot of that. I wanted to go to college, one, to, like anybody, get out the house,
Get away.
get away, spread your wings a little bit. So I think it's value in that, because if you do stay sheltered for too long, I feel like you lose a lot of life skills.
No, I 100% agree with that because I learned how to start managing money because of college. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Because
you learn how to
they
live
talk
broke
about
too.
broke college kids and all that stuff like that. And I really feel like being in college helped me to start to manage it because I was very particular with how I spent my money in the summer because of how much I wanted to have at school. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
I feel like you learn how to conduct yourself through the times because I feel like when you're a freshman in college, it's like your buck wild season. Like you just be doing to do anything. Like
If you've been sheltered,
if you've been sheltered, which 100% I've
yeah.
already said that I was. And that's not to say like I hadn't done things or like I hadn't had exposures to drinking or drugs and all that stuff like that. But when you don't have to be concerned with coming home high, you don't have to be concerned
Right.
with,
That's
I'm
funny.
underage and I'm drinking. What are my parents gonna say or stuff like that? Like I mean, my first 2 years of college, I had plenty of opportunities to be suspended from school just because I just was like wilding out.
One thing freshman year gonna do is gonna test your character.
Oh my
It's gonna test.
Christ.
It's gonna test everything
You
that
just
you
gonna be outside doing the most. I mean, you are outside.
listen.
And I think the other issue is that the kind of school we went to a PWI, but it was also a Christian college. My God, Christian colleges are created for you to test your abilities to do all the wrong things and not get caught. Real talk. Am I lying?
No, you're not lying.
And it was
It's too
so
many rules.
strict. It was so
It's
strict.
too many. It's too many. See, here's the thing. You can't. You can't get adults together and then restrict them when they're finally leaving something that they felt
Restricted
restricted
it.
from.
Yes.
So when you put even more shackles on them, then they're going to rebel every single
Oh
time.
my goodness. And
You might as
so
well not even have the rules because they're
we
going to
couldn't
break them.
even have alcohol on campus. It was a dry campus, so there was no alcohol. So the sad part is, and anybody who went to Eastern, y'all already know what's up. The whole thing was, can I be on campus drunk as a skunk? Can I be on campus with alcohol in my room and not get caught?
See, I ain't indulging nothing,
Malcolm didn't
nothing like
indulge. My
that.
baby
But
does not drink. He does
the
not do anything.
no, here's my thing. So I mean, playing AAU and going out and traveling to different cities and stuff like that, staying in hotels, I did learn a sense of how to conduct myself outside of being away from home.
Mm-hmm.
So and then I came into Eastern 20 years old.
Facts.
So that gap year, I didn't necessarily have a gap year because I did go to school, but I went to school in the same city. I stayed home, and I just got myself together because eventually I had aspirations to play
Mm-hmm.
collegiate ball.
Mm-hmm.
So I had a very unconventional route to do that, but it taught me a lot of disciplines throughout that time. That by the time I got on campus, I didn't necessarily care about all of that, but it's freshman year, so
Mac was a playboy.
it's
We
freshman
already
year,
talked
so you
about
gotta do
it.
your
We
thing.
already talked
You
about
gotta do your thing.
Mac was out here. But I digress. But that's the realest part. I think freshman year is that year where you really realize, like, do we do story time? Like, you want me to tell the stories?
What stories?
One of the stories, like your sister didn't even want me to date you because she knew the me before you met me.
Yeah. All right. So here's the thing. My older brother, he went to Eastern, the college that we graduated from. He went there. He graduated there. He was the team chaplain or something like that there.
Yes, the chaplain.
My sister goes there, and here I am. I'm in high
Oh,
school,
goodness.
and I know she's there, and I know she's there for another year by the time I'm out. I was trying to avoid this place at all
Because
costs
she 100% ended up there for 3 more years.
because she definitely wound up there 3 more years. She getting a doctorate and stuff like that. So I was already trying to dodge that place. And then when I made a decision that, okay, I'm going to go here. They was giving them us money and everything else. So I'm going to go here. I knew then that I was going to have a mom on campus.
And that's 100% what it was.
I knew I was going to have a mom on campus. I already knew her, and I knew she was turning them places up, especially when she got power.
What? Oh my gosh, she was an
If she
RA on campus, and she almost got me suspended
If
easily.
you listening to this, I already knew you was going to be a cop on campus.
Yes.
And then you were RA, so that's even heightened, even more. So somebody that you wouldn't get nothing past her, you wouldn't get nothing past her. We talking about a private investigator on campus.
So this goes back to my whole story about how this was sophomore year, and we were like, I think it was the beginning of our basketball season. So me and some of my teammates, we went out, we got some alcohol, we was playing King's Cup, Lord today, playing King's Cup, and I lost, and I had to drink it all, and we were really lit. But don't forget, this is a dry campus, so you're not supposed to be drunk on campus, let alone have the actual alcohol there. And
Right.
she come banging on the door, pow, 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 and she's like, "Is that Brittany in there cussing?" And I'm like, "That ain't no reason why you gotta come in here." And, and I'm like, that's not even like reins to come in this room, because I knew what was about to happen. But I wasn't in my own dorm anyway, so my plan was to escape anyway. I had done this before. I had been caught before, and I've never gotten caught because I got out of that jump. She come in there, they done threw me in the shower because I done puked all over the place. They got me in the shower, and she's just sitting here being Inspector Gadget, like, "Are you drunk? Are you drunk? Are you?" And I'm like,
I
bruh,
tell you, man.
chill.
She got a feature with the LAPD.
Chill. And, long story short, we end up blaming it on somebody else who brought all the alcohol, because I didn't know my teammates had a black garbage can worth of alcohol in their room. But it was it was reasons like that where she almost ruined this whole situation. Because she knew that version of me. And by the time you met me, like, I wasn't even on that. Like, by the time we met, I had already done all the hot girls. You know what I'm saying? I had already done that stuff. Like I wasn't hyped to be, especially I feel like when you even turn 21, it's like all the stuff that I was hyped to do when I was 18, 19, 20. When you turn 21, like I don't even be hyped to drink no more because I can do it. And so
Right.
the whole thing was about being able to sneak around. We couldn't have boys in the room. You could, if you had the opposite sex in your room, you had to have the door open, the light on, all this stuff like that. And so a lot of the whole thing is being able to spend the night with a dude and nobody knows he's in there. You know what I'm saying? Like that was the thrill is not getting caught. And so I really feel like college does really help you to start to learn how to conduct yourself by yourself. You know what I mean? How to operate. But that freshman year, I feel like that's your year to just kind of figure you out and realize like I've just been sheltered. I want to do all the things that I feel like I should be doing or should have been doing or should have been able to do. But I feel like after a while you just kind of come to yourself, you grow up and you just like, all right, cool, I got that out of my system.
I'm curious.
Oh hell,
I'm curious.
help us Holy Ghost.
How do you think that first year going to college is on PKs?
Oh, it's horrible. It's horrible.
Why?
If you are a PK and you
Why?
go away to school, because I just feel like so for me in particular, right? I grew up Church of God 7 day. That means I went to church on Saturday, and we observed the Sabbath, which means that
Say,
you from sunset Friday to sunset Saturday, you could do nothing. So even playing sports, like I couldn't play Friday night games. I couldn't go to Saturday practices. I couldn't go to dances if they were on Friday nights. I couldn't hang out with my friends. You know what I mean? And so the things that I feel like I lacked or the things that I was missing out on. Like I was so pressed to play basketball on Saturday just because I could never do it. You know what I mean? I was so pressed to go
yeah.
to parties on Friday night just because I could never do it. And so I think the thing is because you're always focused on what it's going to look like or who's watching you or who might catch you or who might see you here and all the stuff like that when you're a PK or you living in your parents' house so you really don't get a choice. You know what I'm saying? I feel like when you go to college, now you're in this position where I really don't have to answer to nobody. I could test my waters to see what would I be doing or what was life supposed to be like. And I just feel like that's how you be like, man, is this what I've been missing out on all along? But I feel like I said, you mature in college. College is a very wonderful place to really mature in life. And I feel like once I got through sophomore year, especially once I took that gap year and not going back to school, I truly feel like when I came back, because I had so much freedom in college and then I went back home, I'm like, listen, everything is different now. Everything is different. I don't really feel the need to have to do these things because I know what it's like. I know what the feel is like. But I feel like as PKs, because you're so sheltered and you spend the majority of your time at church, you feel like you missed out on a bunch of life.
So, so what you're saying is like childhood trauma could contribute to somebody's decision on going to college and getting out the
Oh,
nest.
for sure. I had to get out there.
Like some people will be like, man, it's worth taking out some of these loans because
But you don't even be
I
thinking
just need
about
to be on my
that's
own.
the
You
problem.
don't think about
You
that though.
don't think about how it's getting paid for.
Yeah, you
You
don't.
know what
You
I'm saying?
don't.
I feel like
You just think about escaping.
that's another aspect of the trauma of school or, not even, what you're doing in college or
Yeah.
your thought to go about it is that nobody's really even talking about, hey, when you go to college, you're about to take out, all these loans. They
Right.
say take out a loan to
This
get there.
this is what I told myself. I said because I was actually thinking this. I obviously should have been like a finance major.
You should have for sure.
But this is what I was thinking. I said, is it worth getting myself into debt to play a sport that I love and something that I feel like I gotta go do this for me? Like because I felt like I had been I had been overlooked for my entire career that far. I was like, is it worth it? And at that time, I said, absolutely, it's worth it.
But I think
I'm about to bet on me.
there were some things but I feel like they're intangibles that college brings about, like your underdogness or your ability to start to believe in yourself. I believe when you
That's true.
complete college, it's like one of the major things that you chose to complete. You know what I'm saying? When you go to high school, you go to middle school, all that stuff like that, we have to do that. But when you go to college and you decide to stay throughout, that's like that first adult completion that you actually did for yourself. I think you get introduced to some incredible people. I think that's just where I feel like college, the best part about it is that is a place where you truly start to find yourself. You're able to make mistakes where you have to really answer to yourself.
Yeah.
There's no running home to mom and dad, or you might not even want to run home to mom and dad. I remember the time when I was about to get suspended, and I'm like, oh, I'm gonna have to stay in my car, and they're like, no, that's illegal. You can't do that. You gotta go home and tell your parents that you got suspended. And I'm like, nah. Let's talk about this. Like, let me tell you a little something real quick. And but I really feel like college gives you the grounds to start to find that person that you want to become.
Yeah, I agree. I think college was definitely an experience. You get to um, meet lifetime friends.
Oh my gosh, I
Some people,
love y'all.
some people, they meet their significant others for the rest of their life, like us. Thank God I did go to that school.
Thank God.
Thank God she did walk in with that fake Gucci bag that day.
Gucci bag
You
had him
know,
hooked though. He thought I was
yeah.
rich. He thought he was
I
about to get a
definitely
sugar
thought I
mama
couldn't
honey.
afford it. I was like, oh snap.
My baby, I
She
took my baby
tripping.
to Chipotle, and he just
I'm
knew.
saving up for Outback. She out here
Oh
coming
my
in here in Gucci.
gosh.
I was, it was different back then. But I think it's a very, very important development place. Is it worth it? It can be worth it if you make it. If you make it worth it. If you have a plan, if you have a strategy. So I would just ask you, life lesson. Will be a life lesson.
I would say my
As far
life
as with this
lesson
episode.
is my life lesson in this aspect of talking about college is that for our children, we have Caden now, he's 9 months, and in 18 years, we're going to be having this conversation about college. And I would say for sure, my life lesson is I will give him options, but I would also try to provide clarity to help him understand what's about to happen, what to expect while you're there, but also help you find clarity in what you're passionate about, so that you know that you're going to study something that you really want to study. You're going to spend your time getting you're going to spend your time
She looking at our son on the camera, y'all.
trying to make sure this baby don't jump
Yeah.
out the bed. What does he do?
He look like he about to just risk it all right now. So,
But I would really say, like, I want to make sure he's prepared, and like you're passionate. And I think because of how we grew up as millennials, I think we're going to focus more on helping our children find their passions earlier in life, so that when they decide to go to college or not decide to go to college, it's based off of what they truly want to do. And then I'm gonna make sure that it's paid for. He's not going into debt for that. And if he doesn't want to go to college, I want us to be in position to, like, be able to talk about business plans. What are you going to do? And really help him develop those things and have money to help him jumpstart that.
I think my life lesson is pretty sweet. In short, it's just to not transfer childhood trauma onto my child. Not to feel like if I didn't do this, you got to do this. Like you said, give him a choice. Give him a strategy, and give him options. I think is going to be my life lesson, because so many good things can happen just from a conversation. So many things can be avoided just from having a real conversation, an educated conversation on different avenues. And my life lesson is to definitely do that when that time comes, but continue to push the envelope forward and kind of give them these life lessons.
Yeah, I love it. Well, thanks again for tuning into the So Let's Talk About It pod. Episode 4, we're talking about college and universities. But listen, make sure you guys follow us at So Let's Talk About It pod on Instagram. You can follow me at Brittany Donnell. And
you can follow me at Malcolm _2_ she said.
It is
Garrison. But if you type in Malcolm Garrison, you can find me.
my gosh.
Very, very simple dude.
Yes, and for those of you that are going to be submitting questions, we are going to get back to that.
Yeah,
we're going to get back to it real soon. We're excited about that too, to be able to answer your questions. But you can submit all your questions to So Let's Talk About It pod@gmail.com. And listen, we look forward to seeing y'all on the next episode. Y'all can go ahead and we'll have show notes and join the Patreon. We have some special stuff for you all as well. But listen, we look forward to seeing you on the next episode. We love y'all. Let's talk about it.
Let's talk about it. Peace.